Thank you for the introduction, Shishan. So a highlight for me as because a big part of my job involves looking up information from different sources. And when it comes to death in custody, what's personally a big highlight for me is actually that the government has revised their data to include deaths in police custody, especially those that occur outside the lockup. Because if you look at statistics, around 70 to 80% of the police death in custody cases happen on the way from the lockup to the hospital or to the clinic or back, or even in the hospital or the clinic itself. But prior to last year, the government does not account for these cases. They do not exactly include them in the stats. So what the government did, which was good last year, was that they acknowledged that they left that out and they included those stats back in. So for me, that's one good thing. And another good thing that comes with it is the government statistics about the reduction of death in custody by half. So, but that was in 2022. So 2022, it was 21 cases, I think, and the year before that, it was twice more, around 48. So for me, that was a really good thing. If I were to highlight one more positive thing, and this is with regards to Suarang's work. So when it comes to the area of police accountability, there's a lot of what I would say to be standoff between the police and civil society, whereby we would, there will not be many instances where you get to have some sort of dialogue in one way or another with the police. And last year, Suarang did manage to have some sort of dialogue, or rather exchange, by sharing the Mendes principles, or rather an alternative way of interviewing suspects to the police. So that was the context. It was actually some sort of training or capacity building session, and Suarang did bring in experts, i.e. Psychologists, criminologists, to sort of share their knowledge in that area. Internationally speaking, for effective interviewing, it's very important because in common practice in police custody, when a suspect gets arrested, when they get interrogated, normally the practice will be forced confessions, where in some cases they would use physical violence to try to get information out from the suspect. So introducing effective interviewing is very important, in combating the misconceptions that police officers may have when it comes to the effectiveness of false confession, which is none. So for me as well, this is a very good thing. As for the low light, definitely building on what Katrina has mentioned earlier, the IPCC. So that's definitely a low light for civil society, including Suarang, that advocates for better police accountability. So if you look at the, especially the Pakatan Harapan government's manifesto, prior to elections, they actually promised to improve IPCC. But if you look at coverage or statements last year, none whatsoever on the part of the government to improve the commission. And we all know that it's extremely important because through decades, and not that I was here, but at least through the press coverages that I've seen, the press statements that were made, over the years by different NGOs, including Lawyers for Liberty and etc. There were many, many waves whereby, high-profile cases happen, and then the public trust just declines further. And there were many, many media reports over the years that say that there's been an erosion or a decline in public trust towards the police institution. So in that sense, to rectify that, it's important that the police puts forward this picture that, or rather this, structure whereby they're accountable to, their conduct. And the only way to do that is to have an independent mechanism. So in that sense, IPCC, with its weaknesses, need rectifying. So that's the low light.
Thank you so much. Since you brought up IPCC, I wanted to ask, what is the status of IPCC right now? Are there commissioners that have already been appointed? And what does that mean for us, the members of the public? Yeah.
So based on coverage, based on updates by the government, so 5 out of 7 commissioners were appointed, 2 are still pending. When it comes to the role, so just to provide contrast between what we have now and what we wanted. So what we wanted was a commission where they can investigate. So for example, if there's a police death in custody case, right? By right, the IPCC can conduct, just go to the lockup and just visit and just investigate, and then give the recommendations, and in some cases